Hi there guys, my name is Jacob and welcome back to the channel. Now I've spoken about this topic on the channel before, but not for quite some time. So I thought with it being the start of 2026, it was a good time to make another video, update you guys, but also it's a way of keeping myself on track and on target and a reminder of the goals that I've set myself for the year ahead. Now, the topic that I am talking about is of course early retirement. And that is because I've set myself a very big goal of retiring early. And the reason for that is it's something that I've kind of always wanted to achieve. I've watched a lot of videos, read a lot of blogs and all that type of thing about people who have managed to retire early. I think it's something a lot of people dream of. A lot of people want to achieve it, but ultimately, most people don't. I've watched family members work right up until retirement age, which in the UK is around 66, 67. And I've always thought, I just think that is too late to retire because at that age, health starts to decline, mobility and all that type of thing, illness, all these type of things start to crop up. And I think, you want to retire early enough to where you have your health, you have money, you have mobility, you have, all these different things to your advantage so you can make the most of retirement, not just retire and sit in a chair and not do a lot. And sadly, that is what a lot of people do. So my big goal of early retirement is what I am aiming to achieve. And obviously there are a couple of things that I'm actively doing to help me achieve that. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking, early retirement, especially in the UK now, is becoming incredibly difficult to achieve. And I completely agree. With bills going up all the time, housing is so expensive, retirement dates just keep getting pushed back. I mean, the government are looking to increase the state pension age. They're also increasing the private pension age. I believe currently it's around 55 that you can access a private pension, but I believe they're raising that to either 57 or 58. So they're pushing that back as well. So everything seems to be, going down that road of delaying retirement. And that is exactly what I don't want to do. I actually want to bring retirement forward. Now, at 33 years old, a lot of people probably think, why are you even thinking about retirement? You are a long way away. And I agree to a certain extent, but also if I want to achieve early retirement, I need to start thinking about it now, not thinking about it in 10 or 20 years time because it'll be too late then. The earlier you plan for retirement, the earlier you can ultimately make that happen. So I've been thinking about this for many years. I am just that type of person who thinks about retirement when they're 25 years old. Because as I say, I've been working on this plan for quite some time. So the things I'm going to discuss today, I've got two things that I'm actively doing to hopefully enable me to have the choice of early retirement in the years to come. So number one is I want to, in 2026, fill up my annual ISA allowance. Now, for anyone who isn't in the UK and doesn't know what an ISA allowance is, it's basically an account that is tax-free. Basically, you have £20,000 as an allowance each tax year, and you can put that £20,000 in either a cash ISA or a stocks and shares ISA, and whatever interest, dividends, or capital growth that you get on that money is completely tax-free. So I can keep that money in there for many years to come and I'll never have to pay any tax on what I withdraw from it or, as I said, dividends, interest, all the rest of it. So one of my big goals, probably the big goal of 2026, is to fill my stocks and shares ISA. Now, this is something that I have managed to achieve last year. And that was basically the first year that I have actually filled up the £20,000 allowance in 1 year. Now, it's difficult to achieve, but it is doable. And the reason why I have made this my number one goal is because I understand that retiring early is going to be difficult. And if I want to have a chance of retiring prior to the private pension age, which unfortunately I think now is going to be at least 57, 58 for myself, and I would actually like to retire sooner than them. I'm going to need some form of either a big pot of money to draw down from, or dividends or income from something other than a job to allow me to have that choice to retire. And I have kind of come to the conclusion that a stocks and shares ISA is a really good vehicle to be able to achieve this. And I guess there's a couple of reasons. Firstly, the stocks and shares ISA, when I invest in stocks, they appreciate in value, hopefully anyway, over time. And that is certainly what I've seen over the last few years. So that will eventually allow me to hopefully have a big enough pot of money that if I wanted to, I could draw down a percentage of that overall pot each year to pay for my living expenses and ultimately enable me to retire early. Also off that pot of stocks, you can also invest in shares that pay dividends. So again, another avenue that I've been looking at and kind of working towards is potentially building up a pot that is big enough where it would pay me large enough dividends each year, again, to allow me to potentially live off those dividends at an age where I then choose to retire. So if my bills were, say, I don't know, £20,000 a year, and I could build up a pot big enough to be able to pay me £20,000 of dividends every year, then effectively I would be able to retire early and not worry about having to earn an additional income. So that's the theory of it, and that is kind of what I'm aiming to achieve. Now, obviously it's going to be really difficult to build up a pot big enough to actually pay out those type of dividends, or a pot big enough to draw down on and live on. But the way I'm looking at it is, it doesn't need to be a pot big enough to live off forever. It just needs to be a pot big enough that bridges the gap between early retirement and then either drawing a private pension or drawing the state pension. Now, in the kind of dividend scenario, even if I couldn't get that pot to pay the full amount of my living expenses, even if I could only get it to pay out, say, cover half of my living expenses, that would still be a fantastic achievement and ultimately allow me to maybe stop full-time work and maybe just transition to part-time work. So it wouldn't be full early retirement, but it would certainly be, a long way towards achieving that goal. And it would be a far better work-life balance and allow me a lot more time to do other things that I want to do. So ultimately, even if I don't achieve that full goal of covering all my living expenses, it would still be a massive success and allow me to, like I say, have choices. And I think ultimately that is kind of what I'm trying to achieve. It isn't really the goal of retiring early. It's the choice to retire early, or the choice. If I want to carry on working, I'll carry on working. And if I don't want to, then I don't have to. So really, that is what I'm working towards, enabling myself to have that choice to do what I want to do. Once I hit a certain age, maybe it'll be 50 years old. Maybe that's what I'll aim for. But as I said, I'm 33 right now, and I know I'm quite a ways away. So I haven't set a specific age on when I want to achieve this for. At the moment, I'm just trying to build up a pot to then, in a few years' time, maybe start thinking about, okay, how long is it going to take me to get to a certain, value of pot? And then what age could I realistically start to think about, drawing off it or going part-time or, whatever, however it's going to work out. So really, that's a long-winded way of saying goal number one is to fill my stocks and shares ISA allowance of £20,000 in 2026. Goal number two links in with goal number one, all around that topic of early retirement. So goal number two is to pay off my 10% allowance of my mortgage in 2026. Now, my mortgage currently sits at around £170,000, the balance of it. So 10% of that would be £17,000. And the reason why I say 10% is because on my current mortgage deal, the bank actually allow me to pay off 10% without penalising me, without hitting me with a fee or a charge. So I feel like I should make the most of that. Now, I know I've spoke to people about this before, and some people kind of discourage the idea of paying off a mortgage early, because it can be quite a small percentage that you pay. My mortgage is currently sat at around 3.9%. So you could argue that, if you can find a better investment to put your money into, then paying off the mortgage might not be the most sensible thing to do. And I do agree with that to a certain extent. But as I said, if I want to retire early, which is my ultimate goal, then I think I need to have the lowest amount of bills possible to try and achieve that. Now, having a mortgage at the age of 50 or whenever I want to, retire, holding on to that mortgage is really, it's going to kind of scupper that plan of retiring early, because my bills will be so high that I think quitting work will not be feasible. But if I could get rid of the mortgage, which ultimately is my biggest expense every single month, and it is probably for a lot of people watching this video, housing is pretty much the biggest expense for everybody, really. But certainly for me, the mortgage, if I could get rid of that, it basically halves my living expenses on a month-to-month basis. So if I could pay the mortgage off early, that makes early retirement way more feasible, and it makes it way more achievable. So that's why goal number one is to fill up my ISA allowance, because ultimately that is the priority. But if I manage to do that and then I have money left over, let's say I manage to achieve that by, August, September, October, I can then start putting money into paying off the mortgage. And we've got to remember, the ISA allowance runs from April to April. I'm going to try and achieve these things in 2026 in those 12 months. However, obviously the ISA allowance actually does run from April to April. So there is a little bit of extra time if needed to fill up that allowance. But basically those two goals, I think, are my biggest goals that I'm trying to achieve, especially financially. I have other goals in life that I'm trying to achieve, lots of smaller things. But in terms of financials and early retirement, those are the two big things I am always working towards: filling up my ISA allowance and paying down my mortgage. Because I think if I can build up a big enough pot, whether that is a big enough pot to draw down from or live off dividends, and I can get rid of that mortgage, then I think I'm going to be well on my way to achieving that early retirement status. So that is what I'm going to continue to do. Guys, can you let me know down in the comments what goals you have for 2026, or what financial goals you have? If you're someone like me who wants to achieve early retirement, what are you doing to enable that? What things are you putting in place? Are you building up additional income streams? Are you saving? Are you investing? Are you paying down debts like mortgages? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, let me know, because I don't make these type of videos all that often. But if you enjoy them, of course, I'll make many, many more. So guys, let me know down in the comments, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button too, and I will catch you in the next one.